For his views on how to stop the bleeding, we welcome Tony Sanders, professor of real estate finance at George Mason University and the former director of mortgage bond research at Deutsche Bank. Tony was called to testify on Fannie and Freddie before the House Financial Services Committee. Got to get that out, Tony. Back in March. We welcome you back, Tony. Thanks for joining us. You just heard it from Deirdre there. Between these two companies, they guarantee almost $6 trillion of American mortgages. We hear so much about financial regulatory reform, so much about derivatives, so little about Fannie and Freddie. How concerned should we be about the situation right now?
Oh, very concerned. I mean, this is a huge problem facing taxpayers and our already ballooning debts in the United States. This could get, as people have pointed out, it could go up to $1 trillion. I'm guessing it's going to be higher than the CBO estimate of $400 billion. I think it's probably going to run up about $600–700 billion.
So $1 trillion, perhaps not totally unreasonable, as you say, $600 to $700 million is your ballpark estimate. What are the factors that are going to determine whether that number goes up or whether it goes down right now?
Well, Fannie and Freddie are working with servicers to try to modify loans to basically prevent the foreclosures. It's not clear how well those are working. In fact, the evidence is they're not working very well at all. So unemployment, if unemployment stays up where it is, GDP growth slow, which it is, consumer spending slow, which it is, and the housing market starts going down again, which is very possible. And throw on top of that, all the Bush tax cuts go off at January, and throw on all the health care costs that are taxes and fees that are going to go on. And we're facing a potential for a big decline in housing prices, potentially.
Tony, back in March, we heard from the Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, that he was going to do something to solve the Fannie-Freddie problem. 3 months have transpired since then. What, if anything, has changed?
I don't think they're going to do anything with them. I think right now they're in a state of, it's almost like the BP oil spill. They're almost in a state of, we don't know what to do. And again, I think, half of them on the Democratic side just want to put them into HUD, off balance sheet, of course, if they can get away with it. The Republicans want to phase them out, not immediately obliterate them, but phase them out. And the two sides can't agree on it. I think right now the Democrats are leaning towards having super HUD, a gigantic government housing authority, which, again, right now they're either buying or insuring over 95% of the mortgages out there on the residential side. So that's not good.
95%, clearly not the kind of business that the government envisioned itself being in. What are the obstacles to going back to more private sector lending? Why can't the banks be making more mortgages right now?
Well, right now, the Federal Reserve has put clamps on banks. Banks cannot make loans that even have a hint of risk in them, unless, of course, they're residential loans and they be sold to Freddie, Fannie, and insured by the FHA. So right now, there's just not a lot of bank lending, so the banks have to loosen up their lending, or that is, the Fed has to give them permission to go through and loosen up their lending. And then Fannie and Freddie have to curtail their purchase of loans to allow the private sector to get in there. This is an economic phenomenon called crowding out. Right now, the government's crowding out the private sector. In fact, they have them handcuffed so they really can't participate. And it's, the commercial lending market is really getting hammered by this because, again, who's going to loan in the commercial market other than a few pension funds, real estate investment trusts? But the banks aren't getting involved nearly to the extent that they should to have a recovery.
Well, the bottom line is, sorry, Tony, go ahead, please. We got a few seconds left.
Oh, the bottom line is they have to do something like the good bank, bad bank phenomenon, where they allow Fannie, Freddie, and the banks to actually separate the two and write down all these bad loans so we can at least get back to square one. Right now, the whole system's the arteries are clogged, and we just had a heart attack.